Link, the hero of Hyrule, an eternally silent protagonist, yet the face of one of the most popular video game franchises. Thousands of people know the character, but who is he really? That's what this video series is here to answer. In each video, I give an overview of the background, journey, and personality of a particular version of Link, and rate them from 1 to 5. Last time we covered the original hero of Hyrule from the NES games, and today we'll be putting the spotlight on the hero of Legend, who debuted in A Link to the Past. Before we jump in, I want to take a moment to plug my Twitter, where I'll be posting updates on things I'm working on, which you can find in the description. With that out of the way, let's dive into the life of the hero of Legend. When we meet the Link of A Link to the Past, he is a young man living with his uncle in a remote house. The two of them are the last surviving members in the bloodline of the Knights of Hyrule, and Link's uncle taught him sword techniques while he was growing up. Other than that, very little is known. Some of the NPCs in Kakariko Village know Link already, implying that he and his uncle visit the place from time to time, but it's unknown what their business is there. I like that Link has a surviving relative in this game, and it does bring a sense of personal stakes to the adventure, but this background doesn't do quite enough to earn Link higher than a 2 out of 5 in this category. If the hero of Legend's background is shallow, he more than makes up for it with everything that comes next. Before we get into that, I should clear a few things up. Official sources vary on the specific order of the next few games. Hyrule Historia places the oracles in between A Link to the Past and Link's Awakening, but the later Hyrule Encyclopedia puts the oracles last. Due to this change, many fans speculate that the oracles no longer canonically feature the same Link. To further add to the confusion, the two games can be played in either order, and there will be minor story differences depending on which one is played second. For all intents and purposes, I will be going with the original timeline put forth by Hyrule Historia. It may be less current, but it's the one that I got stuck in my head for almost a decade, and it flows a lot better for me narratively. I will also treat Oracle of Seasons as the first quest, and Oracle of Ages as the second quest. With that said, here's Link's story, starting with A Link to the Past. The hero's journey begins when a voice speaks to him in his sleep one night. Claiming to be Princess Zelda, the voice urges Link to rescue her from the dungeon of Hyrule Castle, where a wizard named Aghanim has imprisoned her. As Link wakes, his uncle grabs a sword and goes out into the pouring rain, telling the young man to stay put. Ignoring the order, Link ventures into the downpour with nothing but a lantern. Making his way to the castle, he enters a secret entrance just in time to find his uncle gravely wounded. Reminding Link of the techniques he's learned and his duty to the princess, the brave warrior hands the sword to his nephew and takes his last breath. With sword in hand, Link storms Hyrule Castle, where the soldiers have become hostile. Reaching the dungeon on the bottom floor, he breaks Zelda out of her cell and sneaks her out of the castle through a back entrance, leaving her in the care of a priest at the sanctuary. Zelda instructs him to meet with the elder of Kakariko Village, Sahasrahla, who will surely know how Aghanim can be defeated. After talking with the elder, Link is sent on a quest to retrieve the pendants of courage, wisdom, and power to become worthy of the legendary Master Sword. Braving the trials of the Eastern Palace, the Desert Palace, and the Tower of Hera atop Death Mountain, Link acquires all 3 pendants. At the end of the maze-like Lost Woods, he retrieves the Master Sword, but Zelda cries out to him telepathically, informing him that soldiers have once again captured her. Link rushes back to Hyrule Castle, where he is just in time to witness Aghanim performing a ritual at an altar. The hero watches, helpless, as Zelda vanishes before his eyes, then challenges the evil wizard to a duel. Just before he can deliver the final blow, the wizard transports him to the Dark World, what became of the Sacred Realm after Ganon's presence corrupted it. Despite everything he's gone through, Link's true quest has only just begun. Traveling between this alternate realm and Hyrule, Link journeys to 7 palaces and rescues the maidens sealed within, including Zelda. Together, the 7 maidens break the seal around Ganon's tower, paving the way for the final showdown. Link heads through the deadliest gauntlet yet, where he once again defeats Aghanim. This time, the wizard reveals that he's none other than Ganon himself, and retreats to the pyramid in the middle of the Dark World. After a fierce, decisive battle, Link defeats Ganon at last. In the chamber beyond, Link obtains the full Triforce and wishes for Hyrule to be restored, and all of Ganon's deeds to be undone. This restores the Sacred Realm and even brings people back to life, including the King of Hyrule and Link's uncle. Even after all this, the hero's adventures are far from over. After an unspecified amount of time, the restored Triforce summons Link, who now has the mark of the Triforce on the back of his left hand. When he arrives at its chamber, it sends him on a new quest that will span 2 foreign lands. With a streak of red light, the Triforce sends Link to Holodrum, the first of these 2 lands, where a red-haired dancer finds him unconscious and cares for him while he sleeps. Later, Link wakes with nothing but a shield in his possession and finds his way to a festive dance. He joins in, taking center stage with Din, the troop's leader and the woman who cared for him. The festivity is cut short when lightning zaps the area. A whirlwind sweeps through the clearing, scattering the bystanders, and then a hulking man clad in gold armor appears. Introducing himself as General Onyx, he reveals that Din is the Oracle of Seasons, and captures her in a whirlwind. Link tries to rescue her, but is thrown aside. After Onyx imprisons Din in his fortress, the Temple of Seasons sinks into the earth, throwing the Seasons of Holodrum into chaos. Link, having fallen unconscious yet again, is awoken by Impa, Zelda's nursemaid. The princess had sent Impa to Holodrum to bring Din to Hyrule in secret, because she sensed darkness surrounding her. Now that Din has been captured, it is up to Link to rescue her, but only the Maku Tree, Holodrum's guardian, knows how. Link earns the right to a sword by completing the trials of the Hero's Cave, then goes to visit the Maku Tree. The tree tells Link that he must obtain the 8 Essences of Nature to break past the shadow barrier surrounding Onyx's fortress, and Link ventures out on his latest quest. After Link obtains the first essence, the Maku Tree tells him that he saw a vision of the Temple of Seasons in a strange land, where Link will find an essential item. On his way to the next essence, Link encounters a robed woman who claims that a temple fell into her homeland, Subrosia. Following her through the woods, Link ends up in a subterranean world. There, he discovers the underground Temple of Seasons and obtains the Rod of Seasons, which will eventually allow him to control the seasons at will. With this new tool in his possession, Link returns to Holodrum and resumes his search for the essences. Throughout his journey, Link discovers more essences, powers up the Rod of Seasons, and even goes on a date with Rosa, a Subrosian pop star. Finally, once he has all 8 Essences of Nature, he confronts Onyx, defeats him, and rescues Din. However, even as the hero departs for his next quest, all is not well. It turns out Gerudo witches Kaume and Kotake, otherwise known as Twinrova, were using Onyx as a pawn for their ritual to revive Ganon. Onyx's deeds allowed the flame of destruction to be lit, and now they only need to light 2 more flames. Meanwhile, Link appears in Librina in a flash of blue light, conscious this time. He reunites with Impa, who strangely does not seem to remember him, and she asks him to help her find a singer named Nehru. They locate her in the woods, where Link enjoys her performance and gets acquainted with her. The fun ends when a sorceress named Varen appears, revealing that she had possessed Impa in order to locate Nehru, who is actually the Oracle of Ages. She then possesses Nehru herself, and uses the Oracle's power to travel to the past, throwing the timeline into chaos. Free from Varen's evil influence, Impa now recognizes Link from their time in Holodrum, and instructs him to visit the Maku Tree of Librina. Link does so, but before the Maku Tree can finish explaining how to defeat Varen, she disappears. Link's only option is to travel through a portal in time and investigate. 400 years in the past, he finds village men laboring away at a tower. Queen Ombi was originally having the tower constructed in order to give her lover a way to return home from the sea, but ever since Varen showed up posing as Nehru, the queen has worked the men mercilessly. To make matters worse, the sun has stood still, creating an endless workday. This has created widespread misery throughout the land. Moving on, Link continues to the clearing where the Maku Tree lives, and finds her much younger self being assaulted by moblins, explaining her disappearance in the present. Thankfully, Link is there to avert her death. When he returns to the present, the Maku Tree is suffering memory loss due to the chaos of her contradictory timelines, but she knows Link will need to retrieve the 8 Essences of Time in order to defeat Varen. Thus begins Link's next quest. After obtaining the first essence, Link visits Nehru's house and discovers a hidden room. There, he obtains the Harp of Ages. Nehru speaks to him in a vision and teaches him the Tune of Echoes, which gives him the ability to open portals to the past. With this new power, Link continues his quest for the Essences. On the way to the next dungeon, he discovers mystery seeds. Soldiers stop him and take him to Queen Ombi's palace, where he is forced to relinquish the seeds to Nehru, still possessed by Varen. The queen awards him 10 bombs in exchange for the seeds, and the soldiers send Link on his way. Eventually, the Maku Tree informs him that Queen Ombi and her royal guards have left the palace, giving him a chance to rescue Nehru. After sneaking into the palace and confronting Varen, he figures out that mystery seeds are the key to getting her out of people's bodies, which is why she was rounding them up earlier. Having collected more seeds along the way, he uses them to attack the sorceress without harming Nehru. He drives Varen out of Nehru's body just as Queen Ombi returns with her guards, and the sorceress possesses the queen instead. Surrounded by guards, Link has no choice but to let Nehru warp him to safety. Safely away from Varen in the present day, Nehru fixes the flow of time, restoring the citizens of Librina to normal. However, not all is well. There is still one more essence to collect, and Varen has free reign in the past. Nehru teaches Link the Tune of Time, giving him the power to travel between past and present at will. Just then, Twinrova appears, warning Link that their ritual to revive the Demon King is well on its way. Not to be deterred, Link sets out for the final essence. Once Link has finally collected all 8 essences, the flow of time is fixed for good, and the Maku Tree regains her memories. She bestows Link a Maku seed, which, combined with the essences, will allow him to enter Varen's lair. Link returns to the Black Tower, takes her on, and defeats her once and for all. But the suffering she inflicted on Librina was so great that it still lit the flame of sorrow. Despite Link's efforts, Twinrova's evil ritual is nearly complete. Even as he fought Varen, the witches managed to kidnap Zelda while she was cheering up the townsfolk, and now the flame of despair burns. All that remains is for Zelda to be sacrificed, and Ganon will be revived. Filled with a mystical power, Link, the holder of the essences of time and nature, is transported to Twinrova's lair. After a fierce battle, he defeats the witches, but they sacrifice themselves, bringing Ganon back. Thankfully, since they could not sacrifice Zelda as intended, Ganon is only a mindless, raging beast. Link defeats him before he can once again wreak havoc, and then, after 2 long, arduous quests, sets sail back to Hyrule. Even after all that, the hero of legend is not allowed to rest. On his way back, his boat is wrecked in a storm, and he washes up on the shore of Koholint Island. A young woman named Marin finds him and brings him to the house she shares with her father, tending to him while he's unconscious. When Link wakes, Marin fills him in on what's happened. The only way for Link to leave the island and return home is by waking the Windfish, which requires the use of the 8 instruments of the Sirens. The weary hero once again finds himself with a long quest ahead. He begins by returning to the beach in search of his fallen sword. Once he finds it, he heads in pursuit of the instruments, which are unsurprisingly tucked away in dungeons filled with traps and enemies. On the way, Link gets acquainted with the many charming, quirky inhabitants of the island, particularly Marin. The two begin to form a deeper bond and even go on a little date, where Marin tells Link she dreams of leaving the island. Before the journey is over, Link learns the terrible truth. The island is a figment of the Windfish's mind, and if he awakes from his perpetual nightmare, the island and its people will vanish. With this tragic dilemma hanging over him, Link does what he must. He has a home to return to, and the Windfish has been tormented by these nightmares long enough. With what I assume is a heavy heart, Link gathers the rest of the instruments and plays the Ballad of the Windfish, opening the way to the nightmare's lair. Deep inside the Windfish's egg, Link confronts the nightmares, which take the forms of the hero's own deepest fears, including Aghanim and Ganon. After fighting its final form, a grotesque, raging eyeball, Link defeats the nightmares. Finally, the Windfish is free from its tormented slumber, and the island disappears. Awash at sea, Link simply stares into the depths, presumably questioning his choice as the Windfish flies into the distance above. In the perfect ending, if the player didn't get a single game over, a seagull will also fly into the distance, implied to be Marin's spirit. This will give Link a spark of hope, finally bringing his long journeys to an end. He presumably makes it back to Hyrule and lives the rest of his days in peace. Between the 4 games, this Link has one heck of a journey. Rescuing 3 separate kingdoms, defeating 5 different villains, and waking the Windfish make for a robust resume, to say the least. Despite the fact that most of these games lack in meaningful side content, the sheer number of accomplishments in the main stories is more than enough to earn this Link's journey a perfect 5. No other incarnation has done quite as much as him so far. In the final category, this Link is difficult to analyze. The Super Nintendo and Game Boy Color had very limited graphical capabilities, so Link is an expressionless sprite most of the time. What we do see, though, feels like 2 different versions of Link. The Oracles were originally a self-contained story before being retconned, so Link feels more childish and plucky compared to his stoic personality in the older games. Taken as a whole, he comes across as a stoic, determined knight who sometimes lets out a more childish side. There's also the fact that in A Link to the Past, Link turns into a bunny in the Dark World the first time he enters, which suggests that he has a gentle personality despite the fact that he's an epic hero. This is just enough for me to give him a 3 for a total of 10 points. Like the hero of Hyrule from the NES games, this Link was originally intended to be Christian. There is even official artwork that depicts him praying at a Catholic church. Out of all versions of Link, this one appears the most in the canon Zelda series, with 4 games. It is widely believed that this Link makes a cameo appearance as the Old Man in A Link Between Worlds. This is because he's the final boss of the Shadow Link minigame, and even wields the Master Sword. If true, this would make him over 100 years old. However, this has not been confirmed by Nintendo. The hero of legend lives up to his title. His deeds are still remembered in later generations of Hyrule, and presumably Holodrum and Labrynna as well. It's thanks to him that Ganon was never restored to his full cunning and might, since he's still a mindless beast even later in the Downfall timeline. While adding the oracles into the mix created some story and character inconsistencies, it overall added a ton of weight to this Link's journey. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you think about this Link in the comments. Next time we'll be taking a look at one of the most iconic of them all, the Hero of Time. This is FP Productions, and I'll see you next time.